This week's episode of Couch Potatoes Unite! Is sponsored by Found Penny Studio. Found Penny Studio is exclusively fulfilling our Patreon Tier 3 merchandise perk by doing what they do best, creating to celebrate everyday moments like your favorite TV series. Check out Found Penny Studio's creations at foundpennystudio.com and find Couch Potatoes Unite on Patreon at www.patreon.com/couchpotatoesunite.
You say you wanna watch a drama. You say you wanna watch a comedy. Well, you can watch it with your mama, or you can watch it with your daddy. You'll even sit and watch it with your middle schooler, so you can come and talk around a water cooler. We're watching all day and all night. Couch Potatoes Unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite. Whoa, whoa. Couch Potatoes Unite.
Hello and welcome to a brand new episode of the podcast entitled Couch Potatoes Unite! Which is based on a blog of the same name because it's like a mirror version of who we used to be, but better. Or maybe who we used to be was the mirror version. Who can keep track? All of our versions are United Couch Potatoes! My name is Kylie and I love TV. If you feel the same, keep listening and or checking out our website. CouchPotatoesUnite.wordpress.com, as you're bound to find some common ground or something you like. For Couch Potatoes Unite, we're all about the wonders and unique long-form storytelling of the small screen. CPU! Hopes have been following releases of brand new episodes of the podcast on Wednesdays, as well as new blog entries on some Tuesdays, and as always we have several more new episodes on the way. Because the panels and I live lives behind our podcast, the episodes are published once per week. Subscribe to the website or the podcast via iTunes, Apple Podcasts, Stitcher Radio, via Google Podcasts, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon Music. Basically wherever you get your podcasts, to stay on top of brand new episodes. Episodes already published discuss a variety of shows around the water cooler, including, but not limited to, Stranger Things, iZombie, The Good Place, Game of Thrones, American Horror Story, Grace and Frankie, Mr. Robot, Charmed, and Riverdale. Plus new episodes are in the works, including revisits for Altered Carbon, Doctor Who, Schitt's Creek, Westworld, Fuller House, Unbreakable Kimmy Schmidt, How to Get Away with Murder, Will and Grace, Marvel's Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., The Crown, Supernatural, Chilling Adventures of Sabrina. The MASH Retrospective Series panel will reminisce about seasons 4 through 7. The Outlander panel will get caught up on season 2, and the Star Trek 50 Plus series will talk season 4 of The Next Generation. We'll be launching new panels covering the Breaking Bad universe, This Is Us, The Orville, Big Little Lies, The Good Doctor, Call the Midwife, The Animaniacs, Killing Eve, and Brooklyn Nine-Nine. And because we look back at shows now past, we'll consider the moral implications and quick cancellation of Dollhouse. We'll travel through time and experience all sorts of identities with Quantum Leap. We'll thank the Golden Girls for being friends. We'll cry bazinga for Big Bang Theory, and we'll dive deep into the fantasy world of the magicians. By the way, did you know that CPU also from time to time goes live? We've been live from bunkers and comedy shows, Comic-Cons, and game stores. Plus, we're planning more live appearances and other cool stuff, including in these semi-quarantine times. So make sure you like or follow us at our Facebook page, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, or subscribe to the website, our YouTube channel, our Apple iTunes channel, our Stitcher Radio channel, or find us on Google Podcasts, Spotify, CastBox, iHeartRadio, and Amazon Music. Plus, brand new for 2021, you can subscribe to us via Patreon. In an effort to get fancier, to upgrade some of our stuff, to build some capacity, Couch Potatoes Unite is on Patreon to provide the opportunity to subscribe for perks, including member-exclusive email and Discord access, bonus content, TV-themed merch, and the ability to join CPU for occasional watch parties, and in so doing, possibly to place priority requests for shows that we cover. If any of this sounds like fun to you, head on over to Patreon or download the app and search for our name, Couch Potatoes Unite. Don't forget the exclamation point. In the meantime, if you don't hear a show in this podcast format, fellow panelists and I still write reviews, and we always seek new panelists. So if you have any interest in joining the discussion, say hello by finding us at any of those outlets I've mentioned. At the very least, stop by and leave us a thumbs up, comment, or review. We like feedback. Just keep your emotions in check and run like lightning, because we're about to talk about The Flash. To Today we're around the water cooler and continuing another of CPU's podcast series. This series does not have a fixed number of episodes like other series we do. Rather, it is ongoing and covers a number of shows that fall under one large umbrella, expanding into a quite popular universe of comic book adaptations. With that said, today's episode is episode 27 of our DCTU series, in which our DCTU expert panel discusses the DC television universe, i.e. television programs adapted from DC comic book properties that have morphed and expanded into one television universe. In this 27th episode of our DCTU podcast series, we return to The Flash, specifically Season 6, which aired from October 8th, 2019 to May 12th, 2020, with a total of 19 episodes, all on the CW. To remind the listener, The Flash is an American superhero television series developed by Greg Berlanti, Andrew Kreisberg, and Jeff Johns, airing on the CW. It's based on the DC Comics character Barry Allen, or The Flash, a costume superhero crime fighter with the power to move at superhuman speeds. It is a spin-off from Arrow, existing in the same fictional universe. The series follows Allen, portrayed by Grant Gustin, a crime scene investigator who gains superhuman speed, which he uses to fight criminals, including others who have also gained superhuman abilities. In the 6th season, Barry and Iris, played by Candice Patton, learn that the date of the crisis in which Barry disappears has moved up to December 2019, and that in order to save billions, the Flash must die. Meanwhile, a scientist named Ramsey Rosso has discovered a way to cure people through dark matter, only to turn himself into a metahuman with a violent bloodthirst. Following the events of the Crisis on Infinite Earths, including Barry's survival and the multiverse's destruction and rebirth, Team Flash tries to navigate the world post-crisis, all while the secret organization Black Hole and quantum engineer Eva McCulloch, who is trapped in a dimension called the Mirror Dimension, move forward with their mysterious plans. Today, in the 27th episode of our DCTU series, our DCTU panel, namely Kyle, Hillary, Spencer, Kristen, and Nick, returns to focus specifically upon Season 6 of The Flash. Before we get too far into the discussion, I'm of course going to take a moment to take the panel's temperature because after all, as we all know, sometimes a show can take turns for the better or worse in our heads, or it can continue its level of awesomeness or lack thereof, depending upon its story evolution. As always, it should be noted that all of our panelists have watched all episodes of The Flash to date, and will without doubt discuss sensitive plot points from these seasons and other past seasons of this TV multiverse. So for those of you who are not caught up on The Flash, or really any of the DCTU to date, listen at your own risk, as there may be major spoilers. Welcome back, panel! How are you?
Great!
Awesome.
Are you ready to talk about the 6th season of The Flash, which notably comes after the 3rd season of Black Lightning, which you did not want to talk about? So let's hear some positivity. How do you feel about The Flash?
Yeah, we're ready.
Yeah, yay Flash! I do like Barry Allen.
Okay. Well, good.
And that is your positivity.
Yay, I think. So what we're going to do, of course, is go over the standard CPU character question, which changes with each show we do, so I can take your temperature. Of course, I have tweaked the character question somewhat. I mean, it's not a lot, but somewhat. And so we have to get your temperature following your watch of Season 6. And this is how it goes this time. Upon finishing Season 6 of The Flash, would you say you watch it because you're a big Flash fan and or because you run really fast and are always motivated to do the right thing like the born hero you are, like Barry Allen, a.k.a. The Flash? Do you watch it because you're a Flash fangirl and you don't care who knows it? In fact, you're motivated to tell the truth about him so much, you decide to become a journalist to uncover who he is and to report on his heroic exploits. And while you realize that you really love the guy wearing the Flash costume so much you'd marry him in a heartbeat, you're also beginning to be of two minds about this show. As much as you love the Flash and everything about it, you are also starting to see it as a shallow, hollow version of what it once was, even though parts of it still make you feel alive and leave you wanting to stay that way, like Iris West Allen, as well as her mirror version. Do you watch it because you're a lover of all things pop culture, particularly films, video games, and comic books, and are geeked out by all of the meta references to current pop culture, as well as to the discovery of new meta-humans, so much so that you're in the game and current champion of naming them and or renaming them, as post-crisis events necessitate? Also, you like to build cool gadgets and possibly artificial speed forces, and to support the Flash as the scientifically advanced genius and best friend you are, like Cisco Ramon, aka Vibe, though not anymore, except temporarily during the crisis on Infinite Earths. Do you watch it because you like the family aspect about the show? The Flash is like an adopted son to you and you're supportive of the story he's creating, like Joe West. Have you regained some interest in the show, and though you're struggling with evil impulses and urges and see flaws in what has traditionally been a tightly woven story, you're embracing everything about the show again, warts and all, because you would miss it if it was not on the air. Plus, you recognize that it's trying to be better, and sometimes that's what counts most. Like Caitlin Snow, aka Killer Frost, aka Frost, no killer. Do you show your best enthusiasm for the show and the Flash family when you can? But sometimes you have to tell it like it is, and you think that the show is becoming more predictable than you would care to experience, as you can sense a lot of what's coming by the emotional beats, like Cecile Horton West. Do you watch it begrudgingly because you feel like you've been roped into it against your better judgment at this point, and though it wins you over, begrudgingly, in the end, you feel you have to push back when push comes to shove in order for the show, its writers, and its performers to remember the greatness that once was and that could be again, if only they put the same amount of risk, care, and attention into it that they did in the early days or other Earths, like Harrison Nash Wells, aka Pariah, and all of his many doppelgangers, including Eobard Thawne, aka Reverse Flash, both in the multiverse pre-crisis and in his consciousness post-crisis. Do you watch it because there are parts you like and parts you do not really feel make sense or gel well? And while you will persist in watching, sometimes you think the story being told is a bit of a stretch, like Ralph Dibny, aka Elongated Man. Do you watch it but you don't like it? In fact, you're ready to take down the Flash and all he stands for, especially because you think the show and the Flash are a threat to you and or to good TV everywhere, because either they're drawing the life's blood away from a robust comic book property like Ramsey Rosso, aka Bloodwork, or they're just creating hollow clones of a formula that they keep repeating to the point of neural dissonance, headaches, and the feeling of psychosis, like Eva McCulloch, aka the modern age Mirror Master, in female form. Finally, did you watch it because that's what you do? You monitor the progress of things. You have no emotional tie to the story or this series whatsoever. You just don't want the universe to be obliterated from existence. And or you really wanted to see the episodes of The Flash only to see how they fed into the crisis on Infinite Earths, like Mar Novu, aka the Monitor, or Mobius, or the Anti-Monitor, because he was part of the regular credits for a while. Who would like to start?
My name is Hillary.
Hi, Hillary.
Hello. If you've listened to a lot of the other ones that we do, the comic booky ones, I'm going to say this thing, but you might be tired of hearing it. In a minute, my husband is going to talk, and his name is Kyle, and my sister is moderating this. Her name is Kylie. She will also talk again momentarily.
Hashtag Hillary's disclaimer. Hashtag no one is tired of hearing it. Go.
Now I think you're making assumptions.
Nope.
Either way, last time I said I was Barry, Iris, and Cisco because it's really hard for me sometimes to just pick one. I'm still going to say that is true, but I agree with your purposefully tweaked Iris bit. I still like Cisco because of all the things that he represents, and of course I still love Barry. I really came to love Barry a lot because of Kyle, because he has a deep-seated passion for the Flash and his rogues and whatnot. But I do think that in season 6, we're kind of losing a little bit of the magic. A lot of things are very derivative of other things, yet again. The writers are losing some originality, which they don't need to because they've got lots of material to draw from. But I still do love The Flash. I still like it the best of the DC shows that I am being told to watch. The end.
Okay, welcome back, Hillary. I think
I'm Kyle. Last time I was The Flash and Cecile.
True.
Cecilia. This time I would say Flash because I love all things Flash. I love the character a lot. But probably more with the Killer Frost description. I regained some more interest in the show, especially after watching Black Lightning. It kind of made me appreciate this one, but I do still see its flaws, and I appreciate that they're trying, and there are fun moments and highs, but there are also some lows that you can pick apart. But as a whole, I'm still a big Flash fan, so I do still get more excited about this show than any of the other Arrowverse.
Welcome back, Kyle.
This is Spencer.
Hi, Spencer.
You've heard me on lots and lots of these things by now.
Well, you don't have a disclaimer.
No, I don't. I mean, other than being the token Brit. Anyway.
Yes!
There is that one.
So I would say that I am a mixture of Cisco and Ralph.
That's
I'm
what you
always
were
going to
last
enjoy
time.
any of the pop culture references they drop in, although they're not as prevalent as they were early in the show, which is disappointing. And yeah, I agree with Hillary. The show's starting to lose some of its sheen. The paint is fading, so to speak. And that's probably where the Ralph stuff comes in for me.
That's what you were last time.
It didn't change.
It didn't. Welcome back, Spencer, the token Brit,
Thank
apparently.
you.
It's not true, we don't need a token. Next.
Hi, my name's Kristen.
Hi, Kristen.
Hello. Last time, I was Iris and Caitlin/Frost, and I'm still going to be Iris and Caitlin, even with the tweaked descriptions. I agree with what's been said before. The Flash is still my favorite of the DC shows on the CW, but it is starting to get a little repetitive. It's got a lot of similar beats. It's starting to lose a little bit of that magic that made it so great in the first few seasons, but it's still my favorite of the ones that are left, especially like Kyle said, after watching 3 seasons of Black Lightning, I really appreciate this one a lot more than I did. There I am, still Iris and Caitlin.
There you are. Welcome back, Kristen.
Peace.
Alright, I'm Nick.
Hi, Nick.
I can't pick what I picked last time because Sherlock is not an option.
That is
And
correct. The Harrison
what?
Wells changed again.
So did his description, so I think I fall more to Cisco then, with enjoying pop culture type things, and this fits into that. I do feel like the writers were trying to, I don't know if course correct's the right term, but like there were times in there that it seemed like they were correcting things as they went. It didn't feel as well planned out and thought through, but I still enjoyed it overall. It's just not as good as it has been in the past.
And he nods. Welcome back, Nick. And of course, my name is Kylie. I both moderate and participate in this, our DCTU circus. Last time I was Barry and Iris with more than a dash of Cisco and Cecile. I will remove Cecile and remain the other 3 characters, including with the tweaked description. I agree that The Flash has lost some of its sheen, though I think expecting it to be what it once was might be a lost cause at this point, just because patternistically, as we're watching all of these shows, with the possible exception of Legends, most of them started off pretty strong and kind of have petered off in a way, especially as they've spread themselves across the DC universe and introduced more shows. But I also agree that of all of the shows, this is still my favorite of the ones that are currently on. I look forward to it. I enjoy this ensemble. I love the Flash as a character. I love the library of villains that they're able to draw upon and reuse. I thought that the second half of the season was stronger than the first half of the season, so the post-crisis going into, as opposed to going into the crisis, but we'll see how everybody feels about that. Relativistically or comparatively aside, I think that I still like The Flash. Is it 5 stars excellent? No, but I'm still at 4.5 stars, and I think that's pretty darn good. So welcome back, everybody. We're ready to talk about The Flash, Season 6. Of course, this season was actually broken out with 2 named arcs, which I thought was interesting. This is what Gotham used to do, and none of the DC shows on CW have been doing this, but Flash did this time. So they called the first arc, the pre-crisis arc, the Blood and Truth arc, and they called the post-crisis arc the second graphic novel arc, which is very interesting. But there are 2 specific villains. You have Bloodwork going into Crisis, and you have what is ostensibly the Mirror Master revised coming out of Crisis. So I guess start where you feel most comfortable. What did you like most about this season? What didn't you like at all or like the least?
I just still think one of the disappointing aspects for me, just because we've just piggybacking off of our intros, is that even though, it would be expected for it to lose a little bit of its magic, but like I said in my intro, there's so much Flash to draw from and tap into that they just really haven't done, and I know we've talked about it before, that who knows what the outside controlling factors are with that, but I still don't see any reason why they can't tap into a little more than what they are to make it still rich into its 6 seasons, because like the other shows we've talked about before, those other characters don't have as much to draw from in general, so that's kind of why we assumed, or I think concluded, that they were waning as much as they were. So I still think for me that's just what's a little bit disappointing about The Flash. It's not bad, it just could just be a lot stronger like it was in the beginning, for me anyway.
I think part of that, for me at least, is how neutered the character of Cisco has become. Cisco got to be large, had a lot of jokes, had a lot of pop culture in the beginning, and a lot of that has really been toned down. You know, the vibe part of his character is gone. And in part, I felt like in some ways he was the heart of the show, and with that muting of him, it seems to have lost something there. And then, you know, he was kind of replaced by Ralph, but now we know Ralph's not going to be back, and I worry going forward, are we going to have the same show that we've had to this point, even though it has lost some things?
Yeah, I mean, and I think a big part of that is the ever-expanding roster of characters. They really need to shrink it down. I mean...
Sorry, Kyle. At one point, wasn't Cisco supposed to exit the show? That's still happening?
There were rumors, but he said that wasn't true. The actor said it was true.
Yeah, it definitely, the writing feels like they keep trying to set him up where it will be easy to remove him. That's how I interpret the muted version of it. It's like they keep doing stuff where he won't be around for an episode or two, or he's not doing as much, or it's, I don't know. And then him not having his vibe powers, I do think, take away from it. From the character.
Couple of observations on Cisco. I think that, and I'm guessing, not quoting anything, that a lot of that rumor and speculation was a contract negotiation tactic for Carlos Valdez. We're in the 6th season of the show. He was talking about leaving in the last season. 5-season options are pretty common for any long-running TV shows. And I think Nick is right. What they do is they set it up so that he's able to kind of leave and take some time off and come back. You know, like we got with the beginning of the post-crisis arc. He went off to go catalog the post-crisis changes on Earth Prime. Wasn't gone for very long, maybe 1 or 2 episodes, came back and then was like, yep, I did that. So I think that's part of it. Also, in terms of the story arc, part of Cisco's character development in this back half was that he regrets giving up his vibe powers, potentially. That the taste he had in Crisis made him second guess what he thought he was doing. So there could
I'll agree with that.
Yeah, so there actually could be an evolution there, and that brings me to the next point. What I'm kind of reading on the show as a viewer myself is that Crisis on Infinite Earths was a really big chunk of things that they tried to bite off at once when they already had so much they were kind of wrangling in this universe, and I think the transition out of it has been bumpy at best across all of the shows. Every single show.
I would agree with that. I think if they're going to do these massive crossovers, they need to rethink how their scheduling and production is. And I don't know how these crossovers are going to land with the shifting of all the shows are shifting completely.
And we did Crisis already. I still wasn't, even after all that, I wasn't in love with that crossover. I mean, compared to the other crossovers. So
the crossovers worked better in the beginning when it was 2 or 3 shows, not 7.
I mean, yeah. It's just, they're just trying to, they're trying to follow a formula that's already been done, but they don't have to try so hard. I just wish I could talk to them. Because also, too, I feel like The Flash now, which has, even with all of its seriousness that's happening, I mean, a lot of serious story and plot points happen in the first season, but they somehow managed to find that balance between... I remember talking about in the first season, there was a great balance of all those, of still things being funny, of the romance, of everything. And now it just feels kind of drippy like the other shows. It feels like I've called Arrow kind of a soap opera a lot of times. Not that bad, but it's starting to move in that path a little bit. Barry's always kind of upset about stuff, and Barry Allen is a very positive character. I mean, they're moving in a direction that I don't think tonality-wise is is good.
I mean,
overall.
that's why I had a problem with this season. Like she said, Barry's always a positive character. The first 9 episodes, is all the drama about him knowing he's going to disappear in Crisis. And everyone being sad, which, as a viewer, you know he's going to be okay. The show is The Flash, and they're not going to use Wally now. So that kind of brought down the first half of the season. And the second half of the season is brought down by, he's losing his speed, which at that point, you'd think he'd just be happy he didn't die in Crisis and would be positive that he still has Iris and everything. They have to do the drama, which if you watch the first season, even with his dad in prison and his mom dead and all this bad stuff happening, he's still super positive and excited about life. And then with these more and more with these seasons, it's like they try to bring it into that melancholy Arrow feel.
Yeah, I wish they could balance the Monster of the Week type episodes in there, and
that's another element they've kind of reduced a little bit.
I really kind of missed that.
Yeah, I will say the first episode I got really excited when he ran into the black hole and Cisco puts on the Flash song by Queen.
That was super hilarious.
The first season. Like, it was goofy, pop culture-y, fun, and completely ridiculous.
Barry still being a badass, because there's still times where he should be and he's not. Like, that one chick, I don't know, was that the second episode? Whatever her power was, and he was, running directly into it. Like, Barry doesn't have to do that. He could literally spin her. I'm just saying, to make drama in that moment, they, again, kind of downplay Barry's abilities, which at this point I feel like they shouldn't be doing anymore. At least with some of those side villains.
Yeah, I think a lot of the melancholy comes up in keeping the storyline of that overarching arc alive. Like, Barry being upset that his speed is going away is just a way of them reminding the viewer that that's what one of the main problems is. But back to a different point Kyle made, is one of the other fun things is the team working together, and there's a lot of characters, and they're pretty fragmented as well.
I didn't even remember who the Camilla chick was. The first episode of the season, and I was like, I watched last season, and she's just there with Cisco, and I have no idea who she is. I completely blanked her out of my mind.
The other character that made me think, they are getting ready to replace Cisco, was they had somebody else. What's his name? We met him before.
Chester P. Funk, I believe, is his name.
What was it?
Chester P. Funk, the one who had the black hole creating power. Yeah.
Yes. It looked like they were setting him up to replace Cisco, because he kind of filled in for him.
Yeah.
So I'm going to agree in part and disagree in part. I thought the first half of the season was a chore to get through because of the pre-crisis setup. Because that to me did feel like forced drama in a sense, because we all knew what the outcome was going to be. We just didn't know how it was going to be executed in the end. We knew they weren't getting rid of the Flash, so obviously it was all much ado about nothing. For me, the second half of the season, which was much more effective, because first you had the whole Iris as imposter motif, and then instead of him dying, the consequence of Crisis, there were a couple things that were preying on Barry that to me felt like they mattered. One was the loss of Oliver, which he actually spent some time processing. And then the idea that he kind of broke the Speed Force with the decisions they made in Crisis that actually led to that consequence. And it's fair to point out that season 6 was cut short by the pandemic, so they had 22 episodes in the bucket, but we're only able to produce and air 19. So we don't know where those last 3 episodes might have gone.
Reverse Flash.
Well, I'm very excited about that, because every time he comes back, it's great fun. Even the one episode glimpse we
got. The last 2
got.
episodes were going to be a Reverse Flash, and then a cliffhanger with him leading into the next season.
Which sounds very hopeful and fun. I like him. He's like the guy.
That segues for me into another problem caused by Crisis, is that one of the interesting things in this show is we've had so many different Tom Cavanaghs, and they've chopped it all into this Nash Wells, which is one of the least interesting Welleses we've seen. So if Reverse Flash comes back and is Tom Cavanagh again, we at least get... That would be nice. If it is the other actor that played Reverse Flash, then, I'm not quite sure how I'll feel about it, because I missed seeing more versions of Wells.
I think they set that up with the episode where Eobard was trying to break out of his consciousness, and we learned about the infinite number of Harrison Wells. stuck within Nash Wells. I don't think Nash is here to stay. I think he's just a byproduct.
Let's hope so.
That's temporary of the crisis.
I don't know. It's just we even when we talked about crisis, I just talked about. I mean, it was very very derivative of other things. But even like Kyle and I were discussing that the villain from the first half, he's also very derivative of other things. I don't know.
So it was played
Bloodwork was created in 2017 by DC when they realized they hadn't ripped off Carnage or Venom yet.
It is very like Venom.
As well, if you see the show did a good job differentiating him a little bit, because then if you look at the comic book version of Bloodwork, like I would sue. Like they didn't even try to change his appearance.
Yeah.
So actually, I did appreciate the way he looked when he was in his Bloodwork form with the skull, and I thought it was one of the better visually distinct villains on the show. So that's definitely high up on my list of praise for this season. And they actually had Barry be pretty powerful. I mean, he beat him in like 2 minutes. Like they didn't really downplay Barry's powers for that villain fight.
But for some of those side ones, they did.
Well, yeah.
It doesn't make sense.
Bloodwork was played by Sendil Ramamurthy, who those of us on the panel who watched Heroes might recognize. That was his
Dr.
big
Suresh.
Mm-hmm. Which also
I was
had a
quite
strong
excited when he
first
first
season
appeared
and
on
went
the screen
downhill.
because I recognised him.
Yep.
Yeah, he's a good actor. He's in lots of different things.
Mm-hmm.
He was good on Heroes while Heroes was still good.
I just said that another show that started off strong and went downhill.
And it was just nice that they didn't try to have another speed villain.
That's what I was thinking. Between the two of them, Bloodwork and Eva, I thought that there was at least variety in these villains. They were different. And yet you still had a sprinkling. You still got to see Reverse Flash for a minute. Godspeed came back for a minute. So it's like they're
I'm
still
bothered by how they're limiting Godspeed to just like... I mean, in the beginning, he was just a quick little joke almost of them. Oh, we beat a fourth Godspeed. Well, Godspeed is a super powerful character who shouldn't be a joke character.
I think that's building up to something, though. I don't think that's...
I mean, hopefully, but...
Yeah.
Because they referenced in the last... Either the last episode or the penultimate episode, they referenced very heavily about it being a them. That there's more versions of this Godspeed to come. It's an overarching threat.
Well, maybe that was going to be part of the Reverse Flash stuff. I don't know.
Who knows? COVID has damaged many, many things.
Well, hopefully they can pick that up for the next season and they can start off strong. Because it did, that ending. The ending of the season felt... I didn't realize it was cut short, but it felt like...
Rushed.
Oh, that's the end? Yeah, it didn't...
Yeah.
They kind of
It didn't have the button.
Yeah, they had to cobble that last episode together of what they had shot of the next episode or two and kind of try to retcon it and make an ending. I think I read that they're planning on kind of picking up right where they left off and finishing off this arc. I mean, we're also going to be saying goodbye to Elongated Man when it picks up as well, which will be really interesting because it's not going to be obviously played by the same actor. So it's going to be a different version of Ralph Dibny that we're going to ultimately say
With a quickly shoehorned in excuse as to why he changed his appearance.
Yeah. Like he's on a mission.
Yeah, there'll be something where he gets like shot and it scrambles his molecules to where he can't make that face anymore.
Yeah, but I mean, we're getting rid of the character altogether. It's not just a recast. They said...
Well, they said that the interview I read said that they'll hire an actor for 1 episode or 2 episode little arc. Yeah. With a different face, but it'll be Ralph, and then they'll write the character out, so they won't have to keep using that actor.
Yeah. The article I read from August says that they do not intend to kill off Elongated Man permanently, or even necessarily write him off permanently. However, they do plan to use Sue Dearborn even without him.
I mean, she's an important DC character on her own. She ends up being Ralph's wife, but she has connections to the Justice League, so...
And that actress was fun.
She's more interesting than a lot of other of these side characters they're creating for the show, so...
She was spunky and charismatic. I enjoyed her appearances and her heist-like maneuvers.
I will say, as me and Hillary were talking about, we do still... Technically, even though Ava McCulloch is based on a rogue, we really miss the rogues still. I mean, Captain Cold obviously went with Miller. Rogues. They can't get back, because he just doesn't want to. But what really makes me mad is... We still haven't seen Captain Boomerang, who is the Flash's second main villain. He was in 1 episode of Arrow, and he was actually really awesome in that episode. And supposedly they have re-access to their library again, and they just don't bring back Captain Boomerang, which frustrates me. Like, I would love to see another group of, 6 rogues, but they just they keep not using them.
I mean, literally in both universes, there are obviously the main characters that have such rich villains. And, like, really, in DC world, other than Batman, obviously, the Flash has so many dope villains, and they're just not being utilized, and that's what bothers me when we're watching it. And then they choose, you know, the one guy who is, like, a straight-up, you know, like a weaker copy of a very big Spider-Man villain, which on the flip side universe is, you know, again, a rich rogues Spider-Verse. So I don't know. It just feels like Kristen said it feels kind of repetitive at this point, and I tend to agree with that adjective. It's starting to feel more repetitive to me. I still like it, and I still enjoy watching it, like I said, more than the other ones, but the first time we saw the first couple seasons, I had so many range of emotions, and I loved it. I just don't have that same, like, I'm losing that connection to it a little bit.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I mean, generally I watch these things live or day after, and I said before we started recording today that I realized this morning that I hadn't seen the end of this season, had to binge 3 episodes. That generally doesn't happen. I'm usually fully caught up by the time we get to these things, and I don't have to catch any episodes up. I'm not as interested as I was seasons 1 and 2. This season, in some regards, was better than some of the previous ones. The villains were a little more interesting, even though the Ramesses, or whatever he's calling Ramsey, was a knockoff. It was still an interesting villain. So there's some pros and cons, but it is definitely starting to become, I don't have to see it right away.
Yeah. I mean, I will say this, like, they did make that character more interesting in this show than he is even in the comics, so I do applaud him on that. But yeah, there's just, with his huge 70-year history, there's so much more they could be drawing from.
Just to kind of gauge, I guess I'm going to have to use my arrow tactics. Were there any parts of the season that you would say were great, that you still love despite the warts you're identifying right now?
I mean, I still love Barry, and I love especially any scene with him and Joe. Like, those still have a lot of heart to me. Like, I still get emotional for that, like when he goes to him for like fatherly talk. And Jay Garrick being back and him actually getting his wife. I love that. I love the character of Jay Garrick. Like, I'm obsessed with that character in the comics, and I love him even on the show because I love how they cast him as, you know, Barry's dad. So in previous seasons, when it seemed like he was going to be gone forever, you know, because he said he was losing his powers, he was going to train someone else, I was kind of sad, but I love that they brought him back as a mentor again.
I still love Grant. I think he does such an amazing job portraying the character, even just the emotional touches that Kyle was talking about, like when he sees the other version of his mom in the beginning, because that always gets me. Grant is very good at evoking that, at least those parts of it, the connection, the emotional connection to it.
He sure can cry on cue, can't he?
Man!
One of the things they did well was showing the Barry's compassion and his ability to connect with people, even people that hate him, like they did with, is it Pied Piper at the end, the guy with the gauntlets? That was actually, to me, it showed some of the humanity of the character in a good way that I really enjoyed, that he was able to solve that problem and get past a lot of vengeful feeling from another character and bring that character into the fold and, you know, give him something to, you know, reinstill his faith in humanity.
I agree with that.
I also find myself enjoying the moments Cecile has with the team. Like, I feel like she fits in better and they are using her well. Because I'm watching this show thinking, oh, who to attach to, because, you know, like Cisco isn't as Cisco-like we talked about, and, you know, Barry's was a little bit more melancholy. So, like, Cecile had those moments, and I feel like she was actually the one trying to help them solve their problems, or just have, I don't know, like, she's kind of nurturing the team.
In some ways, I'll agree with that, but there was a problem I had with Cecile, and it was at one point when Mirror Iris kind of had to remind her that she had powers and ask her how she was feeling so that she could then realize that she wasn't really Iris. It was like, that was some really poor writing.
I was going to say, yeah, once you have a character that can sense things about people, it really tries to make, like, the whole infiltration plot kind of moot.
Yep.
At least
right,
in
the coroners all the time.
That one was a big fail where, you know, Mirror Iris Iris just having to say, well, how do I feel? And that was, oh, yeah, I forgot I could do that.
Yeah, it's just weak writing.
And that's something that's happened throughout the entire Arrowverse more recently.
I mean, and they do it a lot with Flash, especially. So, like, if you think about it, he can essentially stop time and dance around everybody. So they have to kind of forget what he can do in order to make a lot of him need these sidekicks and need this team.
Again, I'm just going to say that people who are clearly writing this don't actually know a lot about what they're writing. Sorry, it shows. Maybe there's some background reasoning for that. I don't know, but I don't write, so what do I know? I just know what I'm watching.
I don't know. I guess I don't feel as dim about this one. I mean, we're using descriptors that we used for Gotham. We're using descriptors.
I think we all still love Barry. We're just picking apart a flawed season. I will say, like, compared to, like, the shows like Arrow, where the lows that reached, this is nowhere near that. Like, I still can watch this and I don't, like, shudder. Like, I still enjoy the characters, and it still feels like nostalgia and, like, part of my life watching it, whereas I'm not, like, counting down the minutes or counting down, like, oh no, I have 10 more episodes. Like, this still, I can watch it and it still flows well. It's just, it's still not perfect. They're still being kind of lazy.
Yeah, I think we're pointing out the reasons that even with, as Kyle said, the Flash's 70-year history, it still could be a whole lot richer. There's some laziness happening, or at least it feels that way. So
I think part of that as well is when you get to 5, 6, 7 seasons of something that you've really enjoyed, you start to see the flaws. You may not have seen them early on because it was new, it was fresh. And as that becomes more rote, you get to the point where you do start picking holes in it.
Well, now there's also a lot more. I mean, the competition in the genre just continues to grow as well. So that doesn't help because, I mean, everyone's busy. There's limited time. So you tend to want to lean towards, obviously, what's stronger in the genre.
I mean, I guess I'm just thinking, of all of the ensembles, this is the one I still like the best. Even though Legends has some really good points, and one of its key ingredients now is how much they rotate, sometimes that gets tiresome for me. I like the stability of the Flash ensemble, and even though I think it would be boring if the same characters also made the same choices every time. Now we can, in this 6th season, I think we're struggling with some of the choices that were made, and maybe from a logic perspective, I get that. But in terms of, part of it is going to be a little bit of forced drama just because they need to be able to have an evolution of some place to go. And I'm still back on coming out of Crisis, I think has been a little bit of a weirdness for this team because I don't think they were really, I don't think they were quite prepared to take on Crisis the way that everybody was expecting them to take it on. And then when you do have a lot of properties where you have to filter, in order for it to be true and correct, filter all of the effects into, with a lot of overlapping writers, but not always overlapping writers, you're going to get a lot of hiccups. So I just enjoy the ensemble in Flash. I guess, yes, I agree it's a flawed season. I don't know, other than the first season and maybe the second season, it's been flawed for a while. I think just relatively it has less flaws than the others, number one. And I actually enjoyed the idea of, because I don't think Barry losing his speed is a permanent thing, otherwise why would they call it the Flash? But it's a new problem that he has to deal with. It's got a longer term evolution right now than just,
They also did this with Reverse Flash and Zoom in the 2nd season.
Yeah.
Both of them were speedsters losing their powers, desperately trying to create artificial means to run faster. So they're really just having Barry repeat the same plots from season 1 and 2, just instead of the villains doing it, it's Barry.
But that adds different dimension to it because he's going to make different choices than Eobard or whatever Zoom's real name was, I forget right now. So I guess in that perspective, yes, I see why you're saying it's repetitive, but for right now, it also feels not necessarily as repetitive as is to me.
I'm just saying there's already 2 options for him to get his speed. He's already seen them.
Well, and they're working on the artificial speed force. That's the whole last quarter plot, is them trying to build a new speed force.
The other thing is, though, that there are other ways of bringing problems to a hero or even a meta-villain other than taking away their powers.
Thank you!
That seems to be something that these writers, well, how do we make a problem for Barry this season? Oh, I know.
Yeah,
it's not original.
Exactly. Superman 2, Spider-Man 2.
Spoiler.
I'm just saying, the hero loses his powers thing is lazy. It's just, we don't know what to do.
It's super lazy. Like, come on. That's what I'm saying. There's not originality. And it's just becoming a habit. There's other things. Like, ask the internet, dude. If you don't know, I don't know what else to say. Sorry. And if it's not bothering you, it's probably because you're, blissfully naive about that aspect of it. I don't know. Like, we're not saying it's bad. We're just saying it could just be so much better. It's like the Lazarus Pit again. Like, we're just throwing it at, it's a plot point we're just throwing at things a little bit. So, that's all.
I'm just saying, like, even in season 2, Zoom stole Barry's speed, and he spent a lot of episodes worrying about, like, it's something we've already seen, is all I'm saying. Like, it's not a new plot element for The Flash. We've seen even other seasons with 2 or 3 episodes where he's gotten injured or something and he's lost his speed. It just seems like it's a well they keep going back to.
Okay, well, here again, I'm not saying that season 6 is the best thing that they've written. I think we all agree that that's the first 2 seasons. But I guess maybe it takes me longer to get more annoyed, maybe, with certain things. There was enough variety in the season that I was still engaged with it. And
oh, yeah.
Like you said earlier, the fact that it was not a speedster villain was fun for me. And they still tried to fold in, even though you're right, Nick, they're doing less of the one-off villains, although they did more of them in the post-crisis arc just because they were trying to get the post-crisis effects of these villains. I still think that the second half of the season explored things and aspects that were still a little bit different from other things they've done before. So, I don't know. That's just
overall,
me.
I still enjoyed this season, don't get me wrong. I just found a lot more holes in it and not seeing the fun that we saw early on with this show. It seems to be losing a lot of what really attracted me to it in those first few episodes of the very first season. A lot of that is gone, and that's problematic.
Like, I still have fun with, like, the Ralph, and I still really like Killer Frost, and I like her juxtaposition with Caitlin, but those are the funnest aspects. They've taken the fun out of Iris and the fun out of Barry in a lot of ways. I wish they would, like, spread it out a little bit more instead of just putting all the comedy in one corner and all the drama in another corner. I just wish they mixed things a little bit better.
Okay.
Yeah, I agree with
fair.
the way that Spencer described it. That's essentially how I feel about it.
Well,
They brought Wally back. That was fun.
they did. We thought he was never coming back, and then he came back. It's not a very committed retirement, Kanan Lonsdale.
Take notes, Wentworth Miller. We're up every once in a while.
Oh, yeah. That was
I do think he was a great... I understand all of his reasonings, but I do think that was I still think that was a rough loss for this show.
It was. And it's like, I would almost say, since they have Crisis to explain why Captain Cold would look different, because all the Earths merged. But, like, Wentworth was so good as Captain Cold, I don't think they'll do it. I don't think they want to touch that character in case they do get Wentworth back. But I do miss him. I miss that kind of interaction with Barry, that kind of playful enemy, but they still understand each other thing. Like, that was some of my favorite aspects in the first season. He had more of those enemies that he would joke and banter with and have fun arresting and stopping. And as the show goes on, the nature of storytelling, you have to up the stakes so much that you get less of those villains, and I just kind of miss them.
Well, I'm kind of hoping, and here's where I will segue into the what do you predict or hope for question. I'm kind of hoping that since they have done Crisis, because I don't know what they're hinting at with this Reverse Flash situation, or what everything means with Harrison Wells being the one version of one human on this earth that was able to retain the consciousnesses of all of his doppelgangers. That to me seems special and wasn't idly mentioned since we had a whole episode on it. I'm wondering if as the seasons progress, at least for The Flash, I don't think it's going to matter for the rest of them, if we're not going to start revisiting some of the things that we saw in the past, but twisted, like the twisted fairy tale version of things that we've seen because of the Crisis aftermath. Also, I don't know what they were planning to do with Reverse Flash. This is news to me. I try to avoid spoilers, but the Reverse Flash being part of the last 3 episodes, Tom Cavanaugh style, that was news, and that's interesting. That could be launching something as well. So,
I would love to see that dynamic again. The mentor-hate-love relationship that he had with Barry was like the heart of the first season, and that would go a long way towards winning back a lot of people. And really what I would love to see, now that like the Superman is part of this world and everything, I would like to see the Legion of Doom.
Yeah.
Instead of like these big cosmic threats, just see a group of all their main villains really working, like Lex Luthor and Reverse Flash, who in the comics, whenever they interact, it's freaking hilarious.
I would say that would be fun to see John Cryer and Tom Cavanaugh together. That would rejuvenate something for me, personally.
I mean, they have most of the members of the Legion of Doom. Gorilla Grodd, Lex Luthor, Reverse Flash, Captain Cold normally.
Yeah.
And then obviously the rest are like Batman villains. But that's what I would like to see. Like, it doesn't have to be this otherworldly threat. It can be just a really smart plan, really well done. And you could still almost get a villain of the week feel if you have each member of the Legion of Doom with their own little subplot or something. That's what I love. So you have access to all these characters, and they have all this history with the Flash too, even if they're not necessarily a Flash villain, but you can still draw from crossovers in the comic books, if that makes sense.
It makes
That
perfect
makes very
sense.
good sense, actually.
That would be fun.
I mean, heck, Flash fights Riddler a lot too, like intelligent, regular human who's pitting his brain against like the almost infinite powers of that the Flash has. Like, I would love to see something like that.
Are they allowed to use Batman stuff?
Technically, they said that with the new head of DC, supposedly they have everything open to them, and there's less things that DC supposedly will say no to. That's what the showrunners and that keep saying, but...
And they just keep doing themselves a whole bunch of disservice. Because, again, I think they could get a lot of fresh on these on-screen things.
I mean, I would even draw...
drawing big audience. Go ahead.
I would even draw a lot of the Green Lantern villains into it, since they're very powerful, and they fight Flash a lot, too. He has a history with a lot of them, too, and there's the HBO show, but I know in this corner they haven't used the Green Lanterns, except for maybe they will with Diggle, but that would be a good crossover with Flash, with Diggle bringing some of those villains in.
Yeah, I second that. I want to see Diggle.
He's supposed to.
Yeah, he has a multi-story arc across every single show.
Sweet.
So everyone's hoping that the big crossover this year is the Green Lantern Corps.
I'm willing to bet money that it is.
They're going to be able to do a crossover just with all the COVID restrictions on filming, too. So that would be interesting to see is how big the crossover is going to be this year.
Well, I don't know that are they planning a crossover for this season, since they've had to push back pretty much every single premiere date? Has anyone heard anything about crossover?
The only thing I heard is about the John Diggle jumping from one show to the other. He has a story that spans every single show. So I don't know if it's just him going from each show, or if it's going to be more of a crossover.
See, I heard it was Diggle jumping from show to show too, and I think that's what they're doing in place of crossover this year.
Which may also be setting something up. He may be coming to warn them of something coming, especially if he's Green Lantern now.
Which would be so much fun, because we'd be so much closer to Justice League fully. They keep referencing Atlantis and everything else. They won't have a TV version of the other two yet, but that's fine. We're so close. We're getting there. And they have to have Batman. I don't know why they won't let them use Batman or Batman villains.
You could have such a great Batman TV show.
I know! And I would pull a little bit from each of the different ones that they've tried to start and put them all together.
Instead, we're getting Gotham Mark II.
And it won't be with Robin Lord Taylor and Corey Michael Smith, I bet. That's his name, right? Yes. So.
They say it's going to be much more cop, noir, detective.
They tried that already. Then they went the other way. I know we talk about Gotham a lot, but that is kind of like the measurement stick. Is it better or worse than Gotham? That seems to be like the bar. So other than the Reverse Flash's imminent arc, do you have any other predictions, hopes, or wishes for season 7 of The Flash?
I'm really nervous that we won't... The Council of Wells will bring a huge void to the show. I liked that variety with that character, and now that it's all on one Earth, we've really lost that, and I think that it may hurt the show if they don't come up with a way to capture that magic that was in the first couple of seasons and bring back more incarnations of different Harrison Wells.
I just think Harrison Wells is going to end up with one version that is the Eobard Thawne version. I think he's going to win out and then permanently have that body.
Strong possibility. I kind of agree with Kyle.
Yeah, I do too.
Or they'll go with a Jekyll and Hyde, where he's
Now that would be
sometimes
more interesting.
Nash and sometimes Reverse Flash.
That could be an interesting play.
Yeah, some kind of fractured psychosis that brings out different versions of Wells throughout the season could be interesting, where nobody is really realizing that all of those personalities are in there. They put it down to some kind of psychosis or something, as opposed to different personalities taking control. That could be interesting.
He's already hallucinating visions of them, even without Eobard's interference.
Yeah.
Also, Tom Cavanaugh is just a pleasure to watch, and even though Nash isn't the best of them, I still enjoy the fact that he enjoys it so much.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that would be my biggest complaint about this Wells, is just he felt like a tool to make Crisis happen.
And I think he'll be a tool to make a post-crisis Reverse Flash happen.
At least Crisis wasn't as bad as Flashpoint.
True.
That's right. I think they learned lessons from Flashpoint. Now, granted, I don't know. They're both very large scale, and I don't think they've happened very smoothly. But
No, this wasn't smooth at all, but it was still better than Flashpoint, which should have had major repercussions, but all it did was change the gender of a baby.
And now he's got both the genders post-crisis because Oliver did that. Now they have 2 kids.
Thanks a lot, buddy. You doubled my diaper costs.
Well, maybe that's why Diggle has to run away to be Green Lantern sometimes. Who's taking care of those kids if Lila's at Argus? This is my question. So, the practical questions.
King Shark is actually moonlighting as an au pair.
Oh, wow. That's quite an upgrade. Do they have to...
Hey, he did get a lot of his mind back, so
That's true.
you could do it. You could do it.
I would just worry about, the teeth and the fins holding the babies. Practical concerns. Is there anything... Now, I listed some predictions and observations from the last thing. Most of it was about Crisis. That's what we talked about quite a bit, because there was some, I don't want this to be too much about Crisis, and it's okay if it's about Crisis as long as it works out well. What do we think the verdict is about the whole pre-Crisis arc of this show? I know we talked about it being worse than the second half. But...
The biggest problem was that the whole first half of Flash, of Arrow, of everything going towards Crisis was all about developing what we all knew was going to happen. So it felt plodding. It felt like, get on with it. We want to get to the interesting stuff after Oliver dies.
Yeah, it was pretty predictable.
Mm-hmm.
We predicted it. We talked about it in great discussion in our podcast that took place before these seasons and the crossover itself.
So now that I've seen season 6 in its entirety, so pre-crisis, crisis, and post-crisis, I feel like the pre-crisis section lasted about 1 or 2 episodes too long, and I wish they would have given that time to the back half, just to kind of really fill out that arc. But that also could be because the season got cut short due to COVID. So
Yeah, we lost 3 episodes. I mean, 3 hours of storytelling, or 2 hours and 15 minutes, or whatever it turns out to be.
But I'm still going to argue at this point that the seasons just need to be still shorter in this case as well now, too.
I've been saying that for a long time about...
I am so with you, man.
There's enough content out there. We can have 12 episodes of Flash. Just make them good.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, I'd be okay if it was like a 16 to 18 episode season itself.
Well, yeah, and if you kept the same budget, but you put all that money into half the episodes, like the Netflix shows did, some of the villains and the stuff that they could pull off would be mind-blowing.
It's just trimming the fat, man.
22 episodes does seem really long in the online streaming verse that we are all now in with, Prime and Hulu and Netflix. 10 to 12, really, you get much higher quality storytelling.
Well, in some shows, it isn't every year as a season either. They're shorter seasons, but they take longer. There's more production time, too.
Yeah.
I don't know. CW is sticking to an old method that I guess all the networks are, too, but I feel like CW...
They are really on it, man. Yeah.
Well, like, and I always bring it up, but like the canceled Swamp Thing show was meant to have 13 episodes. They cut it down by 3 episodes at the last minute and kind of screwed over their plot there. I will say the way they budgeted those 13 episodes, the budget they put in like the cinematography, the suits, the special effects, and really good actors, it worked. It worked so well that, like, to me, that 13 episode template is what whoever set up the Swamp Thing show should be working on these shows, because it was really well done.
Did they film the DCU, the formerly what was on the DC streamer and now is on HBO Max? Did they film them in places other than Vancouver?
Yeah.
The Swamp Thing was filmed in North Carolina, I think, right?
Mm-hmm. Yep. And then, like, one of them that's on Justice League Dark is going to be filmed, I think, in California, because J.J. Abrams is producing it and he doesn't want to travel. And then the Green Lantern show, I think, is going to be filmed in California because it's such a special effects heavy show that they need the effects warehouses on hand.
Green Lantern show is separate from the CW-verse?
Yes, it's an HBO.
Warner Brothers owns HBO, and they're really redirecting their content towards the Prime Channel and Max. They're going to get rid of DCU if it's not already gone. Pretty much everything that they release cinematically is going to be exclusively brought to HBO Max, either in first run or just in its aftermarket distribution.
They just announced today that their plan is to do 2 DC comic book movies a year just for HBO Max, not theatrically released, which is their version of competing with the Marvel Disney shows.
I wonder how much longer CW will hold on to any DC shows.
I think we're watching the beginning of the end, quite frankly. Supergirl is leaving after next season. That one's been announced to be the final season, so we'll be talking about penultimate when we talk about Supergirl in a couple episodes. I highly doubt, now I don't, if you love Batwoman, great, I'm very... Good job, but a main character recast with somebody who doesn't have a root in anything, not even the first season of the show, like, they're going to have to pull off a feat that they have not pulled off in any of their other shows, and
especially, like, the first season is so set up around a specific plot to, like, her family and her involvement. To just have a stranger pick that up makes no sense.
And the only reason... I was going to say the only reason Batwoman is even watchable is because of that family relationship and her connection to her cousin, Bruce Wayne, which this person is not going to have. Go ahead, Spencer.
It's going to take a feat of incredible writing, and I'm afraid the evidence is not on their side when you're talking about incredible writing in this universe.
No. I think Legends is writing strongly right now on the existence of Constantine. I think we can talk about that when we get to Legends. I have feelings that they kicked Brandon Routh off the show. Yeah, the Atom wasn't doing much, but his character, Ray Palmer, was still a pretty, to me, integral part of the ensemble. He's gone now, so he was like...
I should have kept him as Superman Prime.
Yeah!
He would have been willing, and that character would have been awesome on Legends. Like, this big blue Boy Scout with that team.
I agree. And even just as Ray Palmer, I mean, this is part of the Legends talk, he adds so much comedically to the show, because they're treating it like a superhero sitcom.
A lot of that comes down to budget, though. They couldn't constantly do the special effects for Atom.
Well, I also think it comes down to the age-old story of longest on the show, highest paid. Plus, his wife was on the show, too. So do you let one go and keep the other, or vice versa? And she's not as popular as he is. So to me, it's all... Nothing's been reported, that's just my guess. But I've read interviews where neither one of them asked to leave. They were asked to leave.
They seem bitter about it.
They're bitter.
They were not happy.
And so to me, that speaks loads about probably a contract. You know, they're paying them too much money. They want to bring in new, fresh faces. That's the Legends talk, though. So that Legends is also survived beyond capacity for belief, because when it first started, we thought it sucked. So
yeah,
it's really.
There's a lot of stuff in the CW verse that they can't talk about. Like Stephen Amell pumped his show up a lot. Well, his non-disclosure stuff ran out, and he's been saying a lot of stuff that he was unhappy with. Like, he was unhappy with Crisis, he was unhappy with the last couple seasons of Arrow.
Bless it.
Whereas before he kept saying he wanted to be done because, it was physically demanding and he didn't want to do that workout anymore. Well, everyone was asking him, like, why are you doing a wrestling show where you have to work out 10 times as hard and you have to do more physical stunts, but you can't switch out? It wasn't because of... That was just his excuse. So
He was being professional.
Yeah.
And of
He wasn't shitting all over his property.
Right. And of course, speaking of properties no one likes, Black Lightning, that one's ending. And so then the only new one you have coming into the universe right now is Superman and Lois, and frankly, that's going to be a crapshoot. We all love Tyler Hoechlin and Bitsy Tulloch, or Elizabeth Tulloch as Superman and Lois Lane respectively, but they've had a notoriously infamous changeover in writers that came out in reporting. It's very scary. If they screw up Superman, they're going to lose the...
one of the writers is suing them now.
Really?
Yeah. It was a female writer, and she said that they fired her because she was trying to add in topical things, I guess, and they let her go because they didn't want any part of that, even though, I don't know, you can read the articles online, but yeah, she's suing the producers of the Arrowverse show. So, like, it's already a troubled production.
It's telling to me also that another piece of this is Batwoman, so whatever you think about Batwoman, Netflix did not get Batwoman streaming rights. It's on HBO Max. So that's really where we're going now at this point. Everything's going to HBO Max, and if they're able to yank back all the rights on the CW properties from Netflix, they're gonna cut weight real fast. I mean, I really think they're just writing out contracts for as long as they can. There is some success. It's the highest rated shows on CW, apart from Supernatural, which just ended. The Flash is number 1. So I think that's part of it. But I think if the Flash ever gets to a point where it's ready to go, none of the rest of them are going to make it, unless Superman is excellent, which I hope it will be. But I don't know.
And it's got big shoes to fill because everybody loves Smallville. Mm-hmm.
And they're using some of the Smallville sets still. So
I'm just saying, if it doesn't hit the ball running, people take Superman and Batman very seriously.
And it's like one of the rumors is about the Superman show is that it's more about his 2 sons than it is him, and that he's like going to be like a side character in his own show. So that worries me too.
I don't know. It making me nervous. All this to say, we still like The Flash. We just think that there are some things that could probably get a little bit stronger. I think everyone agrees that.
Yeah, absolutely.
So now I'm going to ask, because I think we covered, you guys are so good, we covered a lot of the points that I brought up. So here's the famous 2 questions, really. Okay, are you going, no, you wait for it. Are you going to keep watching, wait for it, because you have to or because you want to?
A little bit of both.
Yeah,
with
Flash, I do get excited about the possibility of every new season.
I mean, yeah, I have to watch it, but I still like watching it. I'm not saying I don't like watching it.
There's no apprehension from me when it comes to getting ready for the next season. I still have some pretty decent interest in the show.
So by and large want to, but
there's a bit of have to
because of the podcast. Okay. So then the next question is, do you still, because The Flash is still going as far as we know, do you still recommend The Flash? Why or why not?
I mean, I will always recommend the first 2 seasons, and I say take it from there. You have to watch those. And if you fall in love with the characters, then it's worth continuing.
Yeah, I would agree with that pretty much. The first 2 seasons were excellent. It kind of fell off a little bit. I found this season to be a little better, especially post-Crisis. I wish they'd been able to do their full run of episodes after Crisis to fill out the season. So yeah, I would probably still recommend it to people, not as enthusiastically as I would have done in the early
Yeah. Like I would still recommend it, but I would disclaimer it a little bit. Just a little.
Yeah, there may be caveats attached.
Yeah. And I would put in the points that the boys were already saying.
We're the boys, Kyle.
You're the boys. You guys say the same things a lot, so you're the boys.
Then I'm Black Noir.
Okay, whatever.
What just happened?
I guess that makes me Homelander.
Whoa.
Kristen's face was fantastic. Too bad we can't record that.
I missed it.
don't even know what face I made.
It was great.
Is this
I think I was the only one that saw it.
Is this a The Boys reference?
Yes, The Boys is phenomenal.
I have a humongous panel and waiting list already waiting for it.
I bet you do.
And I'll just say, like, I hated that comic, like, absolutely hated, so I wasn't going to give that show a chance. But I finally did, and it is amazing.
That's what everybody says. I can't wait to watch it.
It's mind-blowing.
Yeah, he watched it because I've been working a lot, and he was like, well, I'm just going to watch this. And, like, every day I would come home and he was still watching it. Well, I mean, he went through it fast, so I say every day, but he went through it really fast.
Yeah, 8-episode seasons on a superhero show is, like, perfect.
But that's one that really left me wanting more after 8 episodes.
Mm-hmm.
Wow. Okay.
But you hit the last episode of the season, and you're like, no, that can't be it.
No,
I've been watching other things like Black Lightning and whatnot, so I haven't watched.
I just want to mention that it's created by Eric Kripke, and season 3 will feature Jensen Ackles, the boy.
As Soldier Boy, the horrible version of Captain America.
Doesn't matter, it'll look like Jensen Ackles.
No, that's what I'm saying. He's gonna be awesome because
Okay.
he can play that. Like, I can picture him. And I want to see it so bad.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see him do... I mean, he's been Dean for so long, so...
He needs to switch up.
He needs to switch up, and I'm excited for it.
He was one of the people in contention to be Captain America, so it kind of has a meta reference to it, so...
I have the faith. I have the faith.
There's no way he could be Chris.
And even if he brought a little Dean to it, I wouldn't be mad about it. But that's for The Boys podcast, which is on our production line waiting list. So at this time, do you have anything else you wish to say about season 6 of The Flash, or what you hope to see in season 7, such as it is? Wow.
Nick, for the audience who cannot see, Nick just shrugged.
But it was a prolonged shrug.
Works so well in the verbal format.
A prolonged shrug with kind of a dopey grin.
I feel that we covered season 6 well enough.
I do too.
I have hopes that we will see a bit more brightness in season 7.
Yeah, make it flashy again.
Yeah.
Well, I will just add that I can't wait to watch it because I will, and I still like it, and I still recommend it, and I think the love is strong, even though the worry is there too. So I agree. Apparently you've become Mad King George. Anyway, so at this time, what I like to do is thank, because we flashily covered The Flash, Nick and Hillary and Kyle and Kristen and Spencer for joining me once again to talk about The Flash and its 6th season. And since we've done that, it's time to roll the new credits! Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point was produced by Back Pocket Productions, run by yours truly, the Chief Couch Potato, which is really another way of saying executively produced by me, Kylie Piette. My associate producers are Krista Pennington and Selene Rezmer. I edit this podcast, and our logo is by Rebecca Wallace. Our marketing graphic artist is Krista. Our theme song was written by Sarah Milbratz and sung by Sarah, Amy McDaniel, and Kels Rezmer. Kels played the keyboard, Ian McDonough played the bass, Christian Somerville played the guitar, and the whole shebang was engineered by Kyle Aspinall and Christian. We hail from Grand Rapids, Michigan. Please, if you like what you hear, take the time to rate us, give us stars, provide comments, or review us wherever you get your podcasts. Apple, Stitcher, Spotify, iHeartRadio, CastBox, and Amazon are just a few of the places you can find us, but we're also on YouTube. We have our website, and we're now on Patreon at patreon.com/CouchPotatoesUnite. If you really love us, pledge your support by becoming one of our United Couch Potatoes as we grow our little sofa-populated corner of the world. Otherwise, feel free to tell us how we're doing, what we should add, subtract, keep, or toss. You know how it goes. And if you have suggestions for shows we might consider, contact us at our website where we have a guest book, by email at couchpotatoesunitepodcast@gmail.com, our Facebook, our Twitter at CPU Podcast, our Instagram at Couch Potatoes Unite, our Patreon, or wherever you get your podcasts. Though, of course, we add new and old shows to chat about around the water cooler all the time, and always have new episodes coming down the pipe. Just listen to our intros. If you miss old episodes or want to know in general what shows we cover, just search for us. Find us wherever you do searchable things on the internet. Don't forget that exclamation point, or contact us via our website, our email, our social media accounts, and our Patreon to stay up on all the new events and episodes by our humble little podcast. Couch Potatoes Unite! Exclamation point! Until the next time, The Flash is available to stream in its entirety on Netflix because the CW has a contract with them. Even though we don't, that's fine. We're broadening our streaming horizons. In the meantime, our DCTU panel will next reconvene very shortly, in fact, to discuss Season 1, the inaugural season of Batwoman. So until next time, until next episode, new episodes are published every Wednesday. Keep listening, keep watching, stay tuned!
Good night. Bye-bye.